computer. Okay. Laurel, you and I had a chat. This is okay. So first off, this is Laurel. Welcome to the podcast, Laurel.
Hello.
Laurel is oh gosh, Laurel is a tree whisperer, and she's an arborist, and she's down in the Richmond, Virginia area. And Laurel, you have a book. I had it right here on my table. Remind me, how to pick your perfect tree. Choosing your perfect
Hi. Yep,
tips from
that's
Lynn
it.
Steiner. There it is. There's Laural Roaldson.
Hmm.
So
Yep.
exciting. Okay, Laurel, you are also a bit of an intuitive yourself. And so
Yes.
I want to have a hard conversation this morning because I need the hard conversation because I am super struggling this morning. And then we will get into your intuitive reading if you don't mind. But
Absolutely. Let's go for it.
you and I were on the phone 2 nights ago,
Hmm.
and I said I was talking about the poll in Iowa that said Iowa was going to go blue. And then you said in your head you heard Idaho. Or there was some confusion about Idaho and Iowa. And
Yes.
I said Idaho at one point, and you were like, I knew you were going to say Idaho. Both of us knew that we knew that Idaho was going to go blue, which we also knew logically didn't make sense because it's such a red state.
Yeah.
This morning, according to the polls, Idaho is flaming red.
Wow.
Yes. And so I am having that intuition struggle, right? Where what you know is what you know is what you know, but it's not what reality is showing you.
Hmm.
And I want to ask you because I know this is something I argue with myself about all the time about when I don't hear correctly, my left brain then beats the shit up out of me and tells me, I don't know why you follow your intuition. I don't know why you like listen to this. I don't know why you listen to your gut because it always drives you the wrong direction. Like this is the shit my left brain says because it's scared and it knows that I'm like not walking in logic all the time and it wants to be in control. And so
Hmm.
I want to hear from you. One, how did you hear Idaho turning blue like I did? And then I also want to hear how you manage when you hear wrong.
Um, let's deal with the second question first, because that's really more important.
Okay.
You have to remember that time is simultaneous. Time is a construct.
Mhm.
So what we heard, it wasn't meant for this election.
Shit.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it would have been nice. Um, but it wasn't meant for this election. And so when we get information, hits as we sometimes refer to it,
Mhm.
keep in mind that it is the bigger picture. We get the bigger picture. And so, what's happening now is meant to happen. It's not going to be pleasant for a lot of people. It'll be pleasant for a few. Um, but I think the point of this whole thing happening is that uh, we need to experience the discomfort. We need to experience the threat to democracy, to our freedom, because this is gonna be a doozy.
It's gonna be
Um,
interesting.
it is. And, accepting it, acknowledging it, accepting it, and where do we go from here? And stay focused on where we want to go. That's what we have to do. And so it didn't pan out what we thought for this time, but that doesn't mean you were wrong, Kim.
So,
It means that you got the information for something else.
right.
With, does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so.
That's the way that I view this whole thing happening. It was not what we wanted. It's what I think is necessary for our evolution as,
I, yeah.
humans.
Yeah. And I think of that Eckhart Tolle phrase where he says, how do you know this is the experience you're supposed to be having? Because it's the one you're having.
Exactly.
The other thing I'm struggling with this morning as I'm staring down the barrel of what I'm staring down, right,
Yeah.
is I have seen an image a couple of times of the United States broken into 5 or 6 pieces. I have
Mhm.
said for decades the United States is too big, that we're too unwieldy, and that we have too many ideologies all over the place. And I've known for a very long time that Maine, northern Maine, would love to secede from southern Maine. Like for a very long time, there's been a big joke about how northern Maine wants nothing to do with southern Maine. But the truth is, northern Maine would never survive without southern Maine. And then I make the snarky comment, fine, then northern Maine can go to Canada, right? Just flip yourself a little bit further north and hop into Canada. I'm fine with that. If you don't want to be here, you don't have to be here. And I
Uh-huh.
say the same thing to Texas, right? If Texas really wants to secede that badly from the Union, go right ahead. Like, have at it. Go be your
Mhm.
own huge freaking nation because you are bigger than 3 European countries.
Can you still see me okay?
Yeah, I see you great.
Okay.
Okay.
Um,
And
this is
so,
fascinating to me because it doesn't surprise me at all.
right. And I've also known that like if New England, if there were to be a break, I don't know where Ohio would go, but like I've also known that the Mason-Dixon line would be the break. So it would be between Pennsylvania and Maryland, and then Delaware would be one country. Pennsylvania, Delaware, Maryland, and all of New England would be one country. And
Okay.
then Maryland South would be another country. Now, what the middle of this country does, I have no idea. Like what the Dakotas and Wyoming and Montana and like the middle states like Ohio, I have no idea what they would do, and they can figure that out on their own. But I sort of have in my head that California, Oregon, and Washington would stick together, and then Idaho would go with Montana, right? Because Idaho and Montana are sort of friends in their ideologies. And so I've just sort of felt for years that the United States is just too big. And this morning, as I was thinking about another 4 years with this man, um, all I could remember were the number of riots we had.
Right.
We had so many riots when he was president that he actually incited. And he has said since that he'll just open the military on them. Like he really doesn't care. He's just going to open the military on the riots, which is just going to make everything worse.
So here's something. Um, the man thrives on negativity.
Yes.
He creates it, he farms it, so to speak. Um, so he needs it. And so he's gonna make a lot of it because that's what he needs. That's what he operates in. Um,
But we don't
so
have to.
that's right. We can choose not to, but we have to choose not to. Does that make sense?
Yeah. We actively choose not to. Like I actively choose not to listen to him, and I actively choose to listen to people who encourage me politically.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. But that you're making a conscious choice.
Yes.
I think, and this is not hey, Christine, would you mind not doing that? Um, you're making a conscious choice, and a lot of us aren't conscious. We go through our day, we're unaware of what we're doing,
Mhm.
we're unaware of ourselves. And
Right.
um, we, as a nation, we're very wealthy, right? And
Yeah.
so things are easy, relatively easy compared to third world countries. When you have it easy, it's easy to be complacent. Um,
Agreed. You don't
he
change. You don't change when you're comfortable.
there's no incentive to change
There's no
unless
incentive.
you right, unless you have an internal something that drives you. And there are those of us that have that, right?
I'm one of those
So
weirdos.
me too. Hello.
Hello.
You know, and but again, we are choosing to be conscious. And Trump being president is putting everybody in a position where they're going to be conscious or not. And those of us that get uncomfortable are going to have more incentive to become conscious. This guy, I see him, and he could be anybody, whether his name is Trump or he's anybody else, Putin or whatever. When you have a negative force at play, he's brought up all the negativity that is inherent in our unconscious. Racism is alive and well in America.
Oh,
And,
it flies its own flag. It
hello.
looks like the Confederate one, and it is everywhere.
And, and misogyny is unfortunately alive and well.
Yes, it is.
And I think that this election has demonstrated that. And the question is, what do we do? How did we get there? It has to do with the way we raise our children. Mm-hmm. It has to do with the way, and remember that women are the primary caretakers. So this is not falling on men. This is falling on all of us. Women are the primary caretakers. There's got to be something that we can do to change up the way we're raising our children. And it doesn't fall squarely on women. I mean, it is a back and forth dance that's going on. Does that make sense to you? I mean, yes. Women act the way they act because of the way they've been treated. Men then act the way they act because of the way they've been treated. And so somebody has to say, this is not okay. I want to do something different. Right. Trump is giving us an opportunity to do something different. And it's going to be really uncomfortable for a while, for a long time.
I have an intuitive. That's what you think. What? I have an intuitive who told me about 2 years ago. She told me, and when did I study with her? It was Heather Alice Shea. And I took a class with her in, I think, last year, maybe the year before. I recently took it. It was an intuitive class. And in that class, she said, for the next 10 years, we're going to be living through hell. And she said, but when the 10 years are up, it will be totally worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. So think of it this way. Trump is a boil, and he has brought up to the surface all negative. Crap. Yeah. 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 All of it.
Like I've joked around all the time that he's a zit that's like deep under the skin, and you just need to squeeze all that shit out.
Exactly. So how is it going to come out though? Somebody has to bring it to the surface for people to look at it. In a way, he's doing a very big service for the American people, for the world, because he is personifying the negativity that is here.
Right. And to be honest, he's not going to leave in the end of 4 years.
Oh, no.
No.
He won't.
We were going to have to have a coup and kick him out.
Well, yeah, I see what you're saying. His legacy it's going to take a long time to get over this. But as you say, you can't get well until you deal with the shit.
Right.
You can't. You have to deal with it. You can't, you can't just put anything on top of it and go, oh, it's okay. Right. It's not okay. It's not okay. We have to deal with the way we think. We have to deal with the way that we react to things. We need to respond to things, not react. How do you respond? In order to respond, you cannot be in fear. And there's so much fear.
So much fear. There's so much fear.
Yeah. I mean, and it's reasonable. It's reasonable to have the fear. And at the same time, you still have to deal with it.
So I don't know if I ever told you, but I used to be a fundamentalist Christian. And I had a fundamentalist stick shoved up my ass pretty far. Okay. And I removed it.
Apparently.
But because I was steeped in Christianity for so long, I know the Bible really well. I've read it 3 times through. right? I know what's in there and I know what's not in there because I've spent a lot of time with it, right?
But yeah,
One of my favorite books in the Bible is Esther. And
mhm.
do you know Esther's story at all?
I'm not sure I do.
Okay, great. That's fine. Esther was a woman who the king thought Mordecai thought was fabulous and amazing, and he saw her like as he was driving down the road and was like, that woman is the most beautiful woman I've ever seen, and he pulled her into his harem, and she went and she looked at her uncle Mordecai's the uncle.
Okay.
Who's the king? It was like Melchizedek. I don't know. Some guy was the king. And so Mordecai was like, go, do the thing. It's okay to be in the harem. And she's like, but this goes against everything we stand for as Jews. He's like, don't tell them you're Jewish.
Okay.
He's like, just go be a part of the harem. You've been singled out. Go. And she goes and she spends like a month or two being pampered and spa'd and salted and mudded and like oiled and like all the things that they did to make women beautiful back then.
Mhm.
All the things we would do now. She gets her nails done and she gets her hair done and she gets like all the treatments, right? She gets all the Botoxes. And at the end of it, she gets presented to the king. And the king is like, hey. And
Yeah.
she's like, if I have found favor with you, can I go to dinner? Can we have dinner? And he's like, sure. So she has him to dinner. And then he's like, this has been great. She's like, great. Can I have dinner with you again? He says, yes, I'd love to have dinner with you again. And so she has dinner with him again. In the meantime, there are a couple of things happening in the world. One, the king's person in next in line, so basically JD Vance in this scenario, is walking around threatening to kill all the Jews. And he's
Wow.
rounding them up. And he's like about to kill them all, including her uncle.
Mm.
In fact, her uncle is sort of seen as a ringleader. And her uncle, she meets him secretly outside the city one night and she says, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know that I can keep like having dinner with the king. Like, what are you asking me to do? Like, how am I supposed to save my people? Like, and Mordecai basically says, you've been called to this position for such a time as this.
Right. Oh, big wow.
You've been called to this position for such a time as this.
Right.
So she has a third dinner. Haman's at the third dinner. And she basically says, King, why are you trying to kill me and my people? And the king is like, what are you talking about? He's like, I'm not trying to kill you. I want to marry you. Like, well, I want to like sleep with you and you won't let me sleep with you. Like, what do you mean I'm trying to kill you? She's like, no, you're trying to kill me and you're trying to kill my people. And he's like, what are you talking about? So she says, I'm Jewish and you're attacking my people and you're killing them left and right. Why are you doing that? The king turns on Haman and Haman becomes like the lowest man ever and like gets completely knocked down and he doesn't blah 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 like he gets his revenge. But this morning I've spent some time thinking like, do I flee, right? Do I flee? Do I fight? And then the answer is I fight. Like I fight because
Yeah.
that's just who I am. I don't flee. Last night I was like, let's go to Ireland. Let's go to, right? Let's go someplace else. Let's go to Canada. Like, let's go someplace else. But today, my stance is very different, and I'm not going anywhere for such a time as this.
Hmm.
The Esther is the only book of the Bible that doesn't mention God. God's name is nowhere in that book. It's like the quickest little book. It's like 6 chapters long. It's a very small, tiny chapter inside the entire book. And for such a time as this, right?
This is for such a time as this. Um, uh,
Yeah.
I love that. And I remember seeing a movie about that, and she was so wise, and her uncle was wise,
Was
and
wise.
she stayed present, Kim. She
Mm.
got through it because she stayed present. In her fear, she stayed present
Yeah,
and realized that beyond the fear is the all that is God. That
mhm,
is the everything, the way, whatever you call it. It's
right.
all the same because, as the Bible says, Alpha, Omega, It's the everything.
Right.
It's the everything. It's the everything that isn't named. It's the
Right.
unnamed. It's the name. It's everything.
Right.
So Trump, President Trump is part of the everything. All of those who want to do something positively with this situation are part of the everything. It cannot be separated.
Right.
So that's why it's happening, because it is the all. It's part of the all.
Right. And if we're going to
And
be healthier in an overall all, right?
yes, we
Yeah,
have to stay.
we have to stay.
Yeah. With that said, I am very grateful that my daughter lives in Australia, because what is going to happen to women's rights is going to be criminal.
Mhm.
And we're going to have to change the laws in order to protect women's rights.
Mhm.
I mean, like, that just blows me away that any woman would vote for Trump,
Yeah, yeah,
because our bodies are not going to be, we're not going to have the same rights that men have to our bodies. And I think that's absolutely insane. And I don't know why anybody would think that's reasonable,
right.
even if you do have a dick, you know? I
I
mean, it's
worked,
crazy.
you and I talked about this 2 weeks, well, 2 days ago, about how I worked for the Roman Catholics
Yes,
and
yes,
how my body had health insurance, but my uterus did not.
right.
And I had an IUD that was causing me a lot of problems because hormones and I don't get along. We're not friends, and it needed to come out.
Uh-huh.
And I called the insurance company and said, if I have this thing out, will I be charged for it? And the insurance company said, no, because you're removing it. Well, after I had the IUD removed, they charged me $300 to have it out.
Wow.
And I then went back to the insurance company and they're like, no, you had something done to your uterus. We don't cover your uterus. And I was like, the freaking Roman Catholics are pro-life. I just gave them an opportunity for me to get pregnant. You would think that removing the contraception would actually be covered, opposed to getting it placed. And they said, yeah, we don't cover the placement of it either. I'm like, yeah, I know you don't cover the placement of it.
Right.
And so I then walked around the organization I worked in and regularly spoke so loudly, everybody in the cafeteria would hear me. I would be like, yeah, I'm covered by medical insurance, but my uterus isn't. I was like really vocal about it. I was like, oh, wait, what? Your Viagra's covered, but my uterus isn't. And I recently saw a meme that said, if it's God's will that I get pregnant, then it's also God's will that you can't get an erection. So you shouldn't have your Viagra covered.
Right.
But that's never going to happen.
Well,
And
this is
so,
about the control. Go ahead.
yeah, it is. It's about control. It's about control.
It's about control of women, not
Yeah.
control. It's about the control of women. And that goes back to what we were saying earlier. That is at the crux of this whole thing.
Have
The
you
whole
ever
thing.
seen I hadn't until I worked at a sexual assault victims center and I was sexually like did the 65 hours of sexual assault training so you can like walk somebody through sexual assault.
No.
There's a movie called Iron Jaw Angels that I had never seen before, which the woman, I can't think of her name right now, crap. And she's a really powerful actress too. She leads a group of suffragettes into basically the hunger strike. And
Whoa.
it's set during that time period when women are fighting for the vote and they get arrested because they keep protesting for the vote and they get put in jail. And then the group of women in jail decide they're just not going to eat anymore.
Mm.
They're just not going to eat. They're going to go to jail, but they're not going to eat because the vote means so much to them and their rights as a human being mean so much to them that they just go on hunger strike inside of jail and they start getting force fed. So they put
Whoa.
a like cage over their faces that holds their mouth open, and then they basically shove a tube down their throat and force them to eat.
Wow.
And basically,
That would not happen to a man.
no, that would not happen to a man. They never
Right.
did that to Gandhi, right?
Right.
And so society heard that they were one force feeding women, right? And this is what got women the vote.
Wow.
Yep. And this is like stuff that we don't talk about. And
Mhm.
so these, like I said, I'm having a rough morning
This is a lot. This is
because
an assault. Yeah.
yeah, because I recognize and I see what's coming. As an intuitive, I
Right.
see what's coming, right?
Mhm.
And it's not going to be easy and it's not going to be pretty and we're basically going into war.
Yeah. Against ourselves.
Hmm.
He is not interested in helping people.
No.
He likes pain. He likes turmoil.
Hmm.
That's kind of it's where he lives. I mean that, he creates it on purpose. He uses it to get things done. Um, it's not to say that he doesn't have good ideas. I think some of his ideas are good. It's his execution that is rough, and roughshod over anybody that doesn't do what he wants.
Hmm.
Yeah, he's not about democracy.
Mm-mm. No, no, and it's only a matter of time before Jimmy Kimmel and Stephen Colbert and somebody else just gets arrested for no reason.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yep.
that kind of thing I think is going to happen.
And Jon Stewart.
Um,
Jon Stewart will get arrested for no reason.
yeah,
Yeah.
who knows? I mean, he has a lot of power. He's going to continue to abuse it. He's been showing his abuse of it from day one. So
Yep.
that's no surprise.
No, it
Um,
won't be surprising for those of us who voted for Kamala for
Kamala,
specific reasons, right?
yeah.
I voted against him for his Hitler language. I voted against him for his like promise to bring the military out into protests.
Mhm.
I voted against him because of things that he does, like try to give a microphone a blowjob, right? I voted against him because he sexually assaults women. I voted against him because he has 34 felonies,
Yes. Yep.
right? I
Mhm.
voted against him for very, very like concrete reasons. That he says he wants to be a dictator from day one.
Yes.
That he
We are
says
going
that
to
he
be.
will only be in office, that he will be in office for 8, 16 years. That he says that he will never leave the Oval Office once he gets there. In fact, he recently, just 3 days ago, said, I never should have left in the first place.
Yeah.
So these are reasons I voted against him
Mhm.
because I hear his words and I believe him.
He means it. He means every word of it.
For a man who is also a compulsive liar, he speaks a lot of truth.
That's funny. That's funny.
Okay. Thank you for being present with me in my struggle this morning as we get the news that he got elected last night, right?
Yeah.
There's a part of me that's also, I'm going to share this with you. There's a part of me that's also hearing it's not done yet, right? Ballots are still being counted. And so if
Ah,
you open the Associated Press's website and you look at it, Pennsylvania has been declared for Trump with less than 200,000 votes between the two. And not every county has declared, which means, and then I did a little Google search because, Google gives me some information. And
mhm.
the Google information I got this morning was that 1 million people voted by mail-in ballot early in Pennsylvania. I do not believe 1 million ballots that have to be open because they're only allowed to be open at 7 o'clock in the morning on the day of election. I
Right.
do not believe I do not believe 1 million envelopes have been opened. And I do not believe 1 million envelopes have been processed. Is it possible that he could still lose Pennsylvania? In
Yeah.
my mind, the answer is yes.
Yeah.
And so there is a part of me that keeps hearing the story isn't over yet.
Okay. Well, keep going with that. I mean, the story isn't over with that for sure. But
Right.
here's something that I noticed when leading up to the election, the day, days before, there was this one show, and there were four men on the panel. Three of them were white,
Mhm.
and there was the one crazy guy from North Carolina, the senator who's clearly wants women to be slaves.
Yes.
I find that ironic since he and his people were slaves. It's like, what are you doing? Nonetheless, anyway, the point is they were four men talking about this election and what was important in the election. I'm thinking, what the fuck? How come there's not a female and a
Mm.
female of color on there talking about our right to have control of our bodies? Why is nobody talking about the environment? I was like, what? They're talking about, well, there's not enough food on the table. And I'm thinking to myself, dude, you really think there's going to be enough food on the table when all these policies he's talking about doing are going to happen?
Right.
When democracy is no longer present, you think there's going to be easy food on the table? No. So what I'm saying is the news, the mainstream news was leading people into fear. And the people that they chose to have on the panels were leading people into fear. What the heck? It's all about keeping control.
Mhm.
And, in order for people to make a change, they have to choose to change, and they have to choose not to be in fear, no matter what they are hearing.
Right. Which there was a night recently, I think it was last Friday night, I was at a restaurant bar. They had a TV on. It was the Fox was in the background. And I realized all of a sudden why so many people were in fear. I was like, because Fox was on in the background and I was watching what they were saying and doing, and I was disgusted. And it looked like German propaganda to me.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, they had Kamala wearing like a Pinocchio nose. And I was just like, that right there is Nazi propaganda.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, they're going for the basis part of humanity. That's how they're leading.
Right.
That's how they're leading.
And it's not like our education system is teaching anything that people really need,
No,
right?
no, it's doing the opposite. It's teaching so that it can control, so that people will be more controllable.
Yep.
That's what they're up to, for sure.
Yeah.
And the way they train doctors, it's to keep the sick machine going. I mean, there's many doctors who talk about this, that, and they're wanting to get out of the system. What's difficult is when you get out of the system, it's hard for you to get insurance.
Right.
And how many people can afford a doctor directly to really pay them what they're worth? There's
Right.
so many things that are, interconnected and not right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But President Trump is bringing this to the fore. All of
He's a
this
broil.
nastiness,
He's a broil.
all of this ugliness is coming out. And we chose him. That's the other thing that we have to accept. Now you and I didn't choose him,
I know.
but the point is, as a collective body, the American people chose this guy.
They chose
We,
Caligula.
yes,
They
Kalia.
chose
Yeah.
Nero, right? They chose Nero.
Yep.
And and I might be seen in this moment as being drastic in my language, right? Like, because people don't see what I'm seeing,
Well, yeah, they can't, but that's why you have to say it,
right?
because
But
there's,
they've chosen somebody worse than Putin.
oh, this guy's bad. Well,
He's
Putin isn't crazy, I don't think. I think that
oh
President Trump is,
Putin Putin is evil.
yes.
Putin is evil. And I mean Caligula used to, I think it was Caligula that would burn Christians for firewood. He would
Well, I
like
didn't know that.
have their he would have like when he had a party, to get into the party, there would be like lit up fires along the path to get into the party, and the firewood for that were human beings.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, the real sick people are the ones that allowed it to happen.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that because in a way, Germany allowed Hitler to happen.
Absolutely. And we have allowed this to happen.
Yes, we have because we voted it in. But once it's in, what do we do, right? What do we do?
Well, hopefully, what's going to happen is we're going to realize this is not working. This is not for the higher good of everybody, and or the collective
Mhm.
good.
Right,
It's not going to be. It's going to be bad. More and more of the environment is going to be destroyed.
right.
Our food system is already
In trouble.
shaky. Yeah. Oh, I would like to say that everybody ought to start planting their victory gardens again. Go and do that. Start growing your own food. You really need to do this because it's not going to be the same. You're not going to be able to get what you're getting now. It's going to change, Kim.
Mm.
It's going to become, it's almost like holding people hostage because they're not going to have the right food. You have to back the right people in order to get food. Grow your own.
Okay.
But
Fascinating.
go ahead with what you were saying earlier.
No, no, I think that's, I think I don't have thoughts now. So, an intuitive reading for Laurel. Are you ready? Are you ready for that? Are you ready to shift into an intuitive reading for you?
Yeah, I want to say a closing comment to you, okay?
Yeah.
And that is that you gotta trust where you are and what you get. And remember that it may not be for the moment you think you're in.
Right.
Remember that you see the big picture, that we tune into the all. We tune into it. We don't try it, just we have a connection to it. So when you get information, trust it.
Right.
Remember, it's not always going to match on the outside because you see more. Okay?
Yep. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, now I'm ready.
One of the things I super appreciate about you is your ability to ground and your ability to find peace in the midst of chaos and know that you need to do that. You are somebody who says, hey, you know what? I am not okay and I need a moment to myself. Thank you very much. Even if that means, and I don't mean this in a negative way, so it's going to sound negative because of the word inconvenience, because that tends to have a negative connotation to it. Even if that inconveniences other people, you're like, nope, nope, I need space.
That's true.
Yeah. Um, you also have a quiet boldness about you. You have a way of saying, this is what's truth, this is what matters, this is what you need. Like just now, go grow a garden, Kim. And I'm like, I don't want to grow a garden. I want nothing to do with gardens, right? But you're like, this is what you really need to do. And you're like firm in that, but you're gentle in that, right? You're like leaving it as a choice. Are you gonna do it or are you not gonna do it, right? And then
Mhm.
and then you live with the consequences. Good luck, right? But like you like put it out there and say, this is what you ultimately need. And you're able to see that for other people. I also really super appreciate your intuitive abilities.
Thank you.
You have really good insight. And I'm seeing that there's an expression in Christianity about a great cloud of witnesses. And the great cloud of witnesses in Christianity is like the angels and the support staff that a person has behind them when they go to do the big thing. The great
Mhm.
cloud of witnesses that go with you. And I feel like you carry a great cloud of witnesses with you. I feel like you
Oh,
don't just have your guides with you. I feel like you've got some angels, and I feel like you know the power that's behind you so that when you step up, you are stepping up inside of your own authority because you work with the great cloud of witnesses all the time, but you don't even realize that's what you're doing.
wow. Thank you. That's a wonderful thing to tell me. Thank you.
You're welcome. Um, I feel like you need to be checking in with your daughter regularly.
Okay.
I feel like her anxiety is going to start spiraling, and she's going to need to hear your voice more. And so you may feel like it's her checking in and not trusting you or not believing you when you say you're okay. But some of that isn't her checking in on you, it's her making herself feel better.
Okay.
And so it's a paradigm shift because you can look at it two ways. My daughter doesn't think I'm doing okay. She thinks I'm losing my mind. She thinks I'm not okay, blah blah blah, right? She keeps checking in on me and like it's really annoying that she's always like there, blah blah blah, right? And part of it's because she's freaking out on the other side of the world looking at what we've done to ourselves.
Ah, yeah.
And she is going to need to hear your voice to ground her. And so
Okay.
her daily check-ins, don't see them as like she thinks I'm going senile because that's the way they're going to come across.
Oh, okay. Uh-huh.
That's not how she means them. It's my mom is living in this fucked up country now. I don't trust anything that she's saying that everything is fine because I don't believe it's fine because I can see their news.
Right.
And so she's going to be a lot more mother henish,
Okay.
okay?
Yeah.
And for you who's fiercely independent, that's going to find you're going to find it annoying. But
I'm
remember
gonna
the heart
go
that
ahead.
that comes from.
Yes, exactly. I was gonna say I'm gonna see it the way she's intending. Um, and she may not be aware of why she's doing it. And so just go with that.
Exactly. Just go with it. Just, you know, when you get sucked under into the ocean into a riptide, right? They tell you to go with it. Just go with it, right? Like just ride your daughter's anxiety wave. It'll be okay.
Yeah, she's a sweetheart. So she's very sensitive too.
Yeah.
So
And I
yeah.
also sense that you guys have an energy connection between the two of you. And so she reads your energy from around the other side of the world. And then she's like, mom's not grounded enough, or mom feels worried to me, or mom feels stressed out to me. And then she just spirals even higher.
Okay. Well, I recently figured out how to get out of the fear. And
Oh.
it's it's a technique and you got to practice it, but
Mhm.
you have to be aware of it.
Yes.
So in that shoot, it took me 60 years to figure it out.
Well, that sounds like something you need to start teaching people. It sounds like something people are definitely going to need,
That's for sure.
right?
Yeah.
Um, and I have ways of getting out of the fear. I have ways of breaking my anxiety, right? I have ways of like, because I'm not the queen of panic attacks, but I used to be sucked under by panic attacks and roll around. My best friend's mom was in Hawaii when they were on their honeymoon, and she got sucked into a wave and it tossed her around and eventually spit her out on the beach without her bathing suit.
Wow.
Yeah, and she almost died. Like it was a thing. It was a big deal, right? And that's how anxiety felt like for me. I felt like I was drowning and being tumbled and I couldn't get out of it. And then I would break out of it and then another one would happen and I would get tumbled around again. And my panic attacks just sort of ate me alive. And I learned how to break them and I learned how to manage them. And
Mhm.
I learned how to not have them anymore.
Wow.
They
Is that what you're
start,
gonna
what was that?
I was gonna say, is that what you're gonna have in your class? Because that
Part of it, yeah.
wow, that's gonna be very powerful.
Yeah. Um, and I've worked really hard to notice when one starts and I'm able to do certain techniques that instantly break the power of it. It might suck me under for 2 or 3 minutes, but never to the extent where I'm like running to the bathroom because I've been so taken under that my bowels have turned to water.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
lost like 25 pounds in 3 weeks, 4 weeks once because of it.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's a great way to lose weight, but it's really not a great way to lose weight.
It's effective, but a little rough.
Exactly. If you want to keep a job, it's really not the way you want to do it. Um, and so for you, I also sense that there's some floundering at this moment about, okay, I have my book and I have the thing. Now what the fuck am I gonna do? Where am I
Hmm.
gonna go? And how does this move me forward? And how
Yeah,
do I and how do I move the needle? Right? How do I move the needle? Now that I have this thing, how do I move the needle forward? And where do I
right.
go forward with it? And I
Yes.
feel like there's a little bit of floundering on like, where is your direction? And I've been actually asking the universe, like, where is Laurel's road? Right? Where is her path to get her to where she wants to be? And I
Hmm.
actually see you at environmental days and at environmental conferences.
Okay.
And I feel like there's going to be a number of them opening up um, because the issues are they're just going to keep coming, right?
Oh,
They're
yeah.
just going to keep coming.
It's not good. What's up ahead for us
Right.
environmentally?
Environmentally, no, environmentally, it's not going to be good, and there's not going to be FEMA relief because all the FEMA workers are evil, remember? So, um, oh, and FEMA is one of the things they're getting rid of in Project 2025. So there's
Hmm.
not going to be relief for people who have a devastating event.
Wow. So again, this puts those in power in more power
Mhm.
and makes others more powerless.
Yes.
So we are going to have to find ways to empower ourselves because they're not going to.
They're not
It's
going.
in their best interest to keep people powerless.
Well, they think it is until there's
They
enough
think it,
driving.
well,
Until there's
yeah,
enough
they think,
driving. Because people
yes.
people who are used to being independent and are used to being able to live the way they want, losing their rights is not something they're going to tolerate for very long at all.
Hope so. I mean, that's the plan. That's why this is happening, by the way, Kim. He won because we got complacent. He won because we have not valued our freedom.
No.
He won because we became selfish,
Yeah,
self-absorbed.
self-absorbed and in a way myopic.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah, myopic. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Consciousness needs to open. Everybody's consciousness needs to open. It's going to take a shit situation like this to make that happen.
To make people awake,
Yeah, to wake people up.
make people up,
They have to,
or they die.
or they die. And it's going to be the ones that they love that die. It's the people that they love that they can't help because of this situation that'll get people to do something about it.
Right.
When people open their hearts, when they're coming from their hearts, it'll make it easier for them to do what needs to be done. They won't be myopic any longer. Do you see?
Yeah. Yeah, we are
That's
part of the problem that I'm sensing is that our nation was built on a couple of key principles. One of them was in New England, where we were here for religious freedom. But once we got here, we didn't give anybody religious freedom,
right.
right? And so there's that, like that sense of I'm right. But on top of that, the people in New England were keep a stiff upper lip, mow your own row, right? Like do your own work, never let them see you sweat, pull yourself up by the bootstraps. There's a total colonial spirit up there of I am an individual, I don't need your help.
Mm-hmm.
And the South, our country was built on people that we said were inferior and subservient and were meant to do our bidding. And if we didn't
So
do,
that we'd have the excuse to use them that way. It
yes,
wasn't ever true.
no, that was a big fucking lie.
Yeah.
Just like the one in New England was a big fucking lie too. Because
Ah,
if you
true.
didn't have a barn raising where everybody came and helped you build a barn, you didn't have a barn,
Right.
right? And the wind and the mowing your own, like hoeing your own row. Do I have a row to hoe too? Yes, but there were plenty of people who walked across the field and said, "Hey, let me help you because I'm done and you need help." Right? There
Hmm.
were plenty of people who broke the stigma and helped each other out. And if they didn't, and the women were helping each other out, but this all came from the men's perspective.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with the South and the slaves. And so we've been built on two major fundamental lies that need to be shattered.
Yes.
One,
Yes.
we are not individuals completely isolated in a little bubble where we have our own work and we do our own thing. We are not that. And the other thing is we are not, nobody is subservient. And that even though the Declaration of Independence says we are all equal, we really are all equal. And we have to agree to that.
Yeah, we have to agree to it and act that way.
Yes.
And the
Well,
parties, they're real. Why do we have parties in the first place?
well,
Do we
Benjamin
really?
Franklin said it was a bad idea that a house divided upon itself cannot stand, which is biblical, by the way. That's in the Bible. Um,
Hello.
hello. And so he said two-party system is dumb and it's going to fail. And here we are.
Yep. Yeah.
And here we are.
Keep looking and keep trusting yourself because there has to be the light bringers. I know that that sounds, woo woo, but somebody has to do it.
If we're
Somebody has
if
to
if
do.
we're nowhere in a woo-woo space, we're in a woo-woo space here.
It is what it is, you know? You keep going. Keep going. Don't stop.
Yeah. So I'll tell you a quick little story. I have a friend who was like, if you want practice speaking, go find a Toastmasters. Go find a Toastmasters. And I was like, all right, I'll go find a Toastmasters. So I found a Toastmasters and I went last night for the first time, right? I went and there were, people gave their talks. And in my head, I'm like thinking about all the ways I would revise their talks as if I gave them, right? I'm like, well, if I had their talk, I'd do it this way. And if I had their talk, I'd do it this way. And if, right,
Wow,
in
that's
my
good.
head, I'm already like, how would I do it differently? So I was like, okay, I'll do it. Like there was at the end, they had like 2 minute off the cuff impromptu talking. And they give you like the count and they give you the like, how was your grammar and did any of your language particularly stand out? And there were lots of people who went up and talked, right? There are lots of people who did it. I wasn't the only one at the end who grabbed a prompt. There was a guy who got a prompt that was like, what's your favorite car? And I was like, oh, I want that one because I would talk about the Czech car called a Skoda in a heartbeat. I could talk for 2 minutes easy about a Skoda, and then which means it's a pity, which is hilarious for a car. And then it's a Czech car made by the Germans that was the national car of the Czech Republic, and it was called Skoda, and it means it's a pity. I was like, I could talk about that, but he took the topic, so I can't have it. And then somebody else got up there and took another topic, and I was like, I could talk about that for 2 minutes too. I want that topic. And I get up there, and they're like, what causes you stress?
Oh my gosh.
And I went, besides the election? And so then I just told a story about how I'm to make a masterclass and then give a live event in Florida in the beginning of January or the end of January.
Mhm.
And who's going to show up? And I can't believe I have to do this. And because my Melanie has told me I have to do this, this is what I'm going to do. And so like I was like, so this is where I am because my mentor has said you will do a master class and it'll be the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. I'm going to give it the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. And I was like, that gives me 2 weeks to pull it together. I haven't even looked at the training on how to pull one together. I haven't like told anybody I'm doing this. And so I just like stood up there and I talked up there for 2 minutes about this thing I'm about to do.
Mhm.
At which point, at the end of it, a lot of people were like your talk. And you know what the only difference between my talk and everybody else's talk in the room? The
What?
only difference was mine was personal.
Yep, exactly.
I told a story about where I really am. And because I told the story about where I really am and what is really stressing me out, it had life to it.
There you go. So
Hmm.
that's what you're going to do with your class.
Always, always.
Wow. Wow. Yep.
Yep.
Wow. What a great affirmation for you.
I know. Everybody in the room was like yours. They were like, you said something I said about like the topic last night was also fear. And so I said, if I'm not stepping into my fear, right? If I'm going to have to step in my fear if I'm going to be alive. If I'm going to live my life to the most that I can, I have to step into my fear. And
Yeah.
I think that's also like where I want to kind of end with you, like both of us stepping into what is fearful for us. And then
Yes.
and then and then shifting the fear, like being like, I recognize this as fear, but I'm going to play it as courage.
Yes. Well, it is courage.
Yes,
I mean, I think fear is acknowledgement of it and doing something about it. And
it's
that, yeah,
courage.
yep.
Right.
And
I
that's the way through it.
I used to have a poster hanging on my classroom wall in the front of the room that said courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is feeling fear and going for it anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're in this together, Kim.
Honey girl, I'm so grateful you're on my team. I'm so grateful. Here, I'm gonna cry again. This has been sort of a weedy morning. I'm really grateful that you and I have connected and that you and I have found each other and that you and
Oh,
I
me
have
too.
like have this weird little bond that we have because you're one of the people I need in my corner. I've been asking the universe for my people. I'm like, I need my people. I don't know who
Mhm.
they are, and I recognize they might not be in my backyard where I can go hang out with them regularly, but I need my people, and the universe has definitely been delivering. So I'm so
Good. Yeah.
grateful that you are one of the people in my space.
You will not be able to get rid of me. I
Woo! I love
no,
that.
yeah. When we were at speakers camp,
Yeah.
you, me, and Jasmine, I mean, I liked everybody. I really enjoyed everybody's company. I felt this pull to the two of you.
Mhm.
And it was as if, I don't know, it was as if, I'm getting a major hit on this. It was as if we were connected,
Mm.
in that triangle, which is the most powerful. Well, was it circles or triangles that are the strongest?
If you're gonna build in triangles. You can't build in a circle.
Yeah.
I
So
mean, a circle will fold in and be super strong as a dome, but as a circle, right? You can't. But if you're going to build, you have to build in triangles. A triangle is the strongest structure.
yeah, but I really jived with you guys, and like I need you guys too. It
Mm.
was like, oh, they get me. They totally know what I'm talking about. They
Yeah.
don't think that I'm off. They
No.
understand. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I don't feel lonely, when we talk. I
Yeah.
don't feel
I
lonely.
agree. I agree with that. I don't feel lonely when we talk.
Yeah.
And there's that moment, and maybe we'll add this to there's a moment where you were having a bad day.
Oh yeah.
You were having a very bad day. Actually, it wasn't a bad day. It was just a bad moment, right? Your cookies didn't want to stay inside your body.
Yeah.
They really wanted to come out and expose themselves to the world. Oh, look, cookies. And so there was a moment when you, me, and Jasmine were all on that rock,
Right.
and we created a circuit between the three of us.
Yes.
And we
With
and
the rock.
with the rock. And Jasmine and I helped you move that energy into the rock,
Yes. Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And we helped you just shift it.
Yeah.
Um, I think that was one of the most powerful moments for me at speaker camp.
Oh, me too, for sure.
Hmm.
And when we were around the tree, oh,
Well, right when we hugged the
oh,
tree, I forgot about that moment where we hugged the tree.
we hugged the tree. It was like, for me, that was a symbology of who I am,
Hmm.
because trees are intrinsically part of who I am.
Right.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And yeah. So no, I'm with you on that one. For sure. I really value you guys very much.
Thank you.
And maybe we can do some more work together. Who knows?
That
Maybe
would
we
be,
will.
maybe we will. That would be amazing.
Yeah. But anytime that you want to ask me, like you're not sure about something, you can be sure, Kim, your connection is very, very strong. Can I give you an intuitive reading?
Sure. Yeah, that'd be amazing.
Okay. So when I experience people, I see energy, I
Mhm,
see energy patterns, I see, the energy moving, colors.
mhm,
You have a Yours is so, so thick.
mhm.
I would say, it's very thick and it's indigo blue and purple.
Hmm.
Haven't
That's
seen that
really
color
nice.
combination before. Those are very, very powerful colors. And it's not glacial moving, but it's slow and it doesn't retreat. Hear that? It
Mhm.
doesn't retreat. Your energy constantly moves forward.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and what happens around you, this is what it appears like. What happens around you is like you're this Amazon.
Did I just
You
lose you?
there?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
lost you for a second.
yeah, okay. You're this Amazon type of energy that moves along and unstoppable, by the way.
Mhm.
And then there are, I'm going to call them beings because they seem to float over you and they dip down into your energy and then they come back up and they do what they need to do. And they drop down and they touch the water, so to speak, or your
Mhm.
energy, your current, and then they go back up and they do what they need to do. You are a major source for people.
Mm.
Major. And then I can also feel Jasmine. She's different, but she's just as present. And you guys work in tandem.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Because I feel like Jasmine does things I can't do.
she does. And you do things that she can't do.
Oh yeah. I always
Yep.
so here's my thinking, which is so funny and not true, but tr like I feel like because I do things the way that I do them, I look at other people's gifts. This is something I struggled with a little bit at speakers camp. I look at other people's gifts and feel like they've got it better than I do because their gifts are like more flashy than mine.
Mm-mm. That's your power.
Mm.
You understand? That's your power because it is underlying. It is constant. The flashiness is important because it gets people's attention. It gets, oh, okay, what's that? And it gets them to think. There has to be somebody, something that sustains it underneath.
Mm.
That's you. You
Fascinating.
are one of them.
I am one
You're one of
of
those
those.
workers. Okay?
And I will say I get why that's the case. I mean, I am drawn to my meditation cushion. Like if I have a choice between going and reading a book and sitting on my meditation cushion, I will take an hour on my meditation cushion before I go read a book. Like
Mm.
I don't even know what I'm doing. I just know that being in that space is incredibly fulfilling. Like I'm gonna say something that's completely wacky, but for me, okay, you know that moment after sex
Huh?
where you've let go, and you've gotten to the space and you've gotten to that moment. And then there's that like bit where you can't move, right? You can't move. Like you're just like, this is like, I'm just in this space and please just let me lie here. Like, don't move me. I'll be fine. Just let me like
Yeah.
hang out in this like cushy, yummy, I've just spent everything I have, but this feels so good space.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what meditation feels like to me.
Ooh, well, no wonder you want to be on that cushion.
Yeah. If I could just like, I mean, I don't necessarily have the climax that feels so good, but I have that like, now if any guy hears this, they're going to be like, any guy who's not, of an enlightened sort will be like, no, she shouldn't spend any time on a meditation cushion because that'll give her something, right? We can't have her having something. But like for me, the
You don't want that
meditation,
guy anyway.
well, oh God, no,
The
I don't
guy
want
who would think that way, you don't want him.
no, I don't want that guy.
Yeah.
Um, for me, the meditation cushion is the space where I lift up. Now you said I lift up out and I leave. I don't know where I go. I'm not here. I'm in this peace space. And so there's a part of me that's like, yeah, go ahead, come and hurt me because I won't be here. You'll be hurting
Mhm.
my body. You won't be hurting me because I'll just lift up out.
You become the one. You become connected with the
Yes.
one.
Yep. You call it the
Yeah.
one. Uh, Esther and Jerry Hicks call it the field. Chris Duncan calls it, no, I'm sorry. Esther and Jerry Hicks call it the vortex. Chris Duncan calls it no space space. Joe Dispenza calls it the field. Paul Selig calls it the upper room. Everybody's got a different term for it. It's
But it is.
all the same. It's samadhi. The Sanskrit people, they call it samadhi, right?
Yeah.
It's all the same thing. It's the you're not here, but you're not there, and you're somewhere in between.
You're with the all.
I'm with the all. I one time gave some guy Reiki. I was dating him and I gave him Reiki, right? I gave him Reiki. And after
Lucky
I
guy.
was done giving him Reiki, he looked at me and I was like talking to him and he's like, "Where are you right now?" And I was like, "I'm right here." He's like, "No, you're not." And I was like, "No, I am." And he's like, "No, you're not." And I was like, "Oh." I was like, part of me might still be up there in the vortex. I'll come back down. I'll embody again. Just give me a
Mhm.
couple minutes. It'll all come back down in again. And he was not energetic. He was not spiritual. He was not any of this. And he would just sort of went, okay.
But he got it. That's
He
cool.
did. He knew I wasn't present. He's like, where are you right now? And I was like, I'm here. He's like, no, you're not. And I was like, I will be.
You know, my housemate Christine is very wise. And she said, like in Course in Miracles, when
Yes.
something negative happens, when something bad happens, it's difficult. Um, she said that the Course says, nothing really happens to you that is the true you.
Yes.
And so I think that's that space that we go into when we
Hmm.
feel so at peace, you
Hmm.
know? And that is the space that we need to remember as we go forward with these next 4 years.
Oh, 8, 10, 12, 14. Although, according to Heather Alice Shea, it won't be longer than 8. But like, it's
Well, I
gonna
mean,
be
how long
rough.
can the guy live? He's in very poor health.
Oh yeah, he's gonna croak soon. But and then we've got JD Vance to deal with.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
And that's a whole different kind of ugly.
Yes. Hmm. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, if I'm very curious as to what happens. I'm very curious as to what happens with the New York case and if he gets put in jail, and then does he try to rule the country from jail? Like this is all very interesting to me. He's being sentenced in a week for 34 felonies. Um, and then he'll pardon himself. He'll use
Yes, he
immunity.
will.
He'll use
Mhm.
immunity. He'll pardon himself. He'll get himself out, and the country will watch him do it, and they will watch him commit crime over and over again. And he will be a king. He will be a god king, as Brian Tyler Cohen likes to call him. He calls him a god king.
This is really not good for the world. It's really not good.
Really not good for the world. No, no, but like you said, there's a boil. It needs to be lanced. And so it's just got to get really big and uncomfortable till somebody comes along and says, no more. Everybody is equal. And we are a democracy. We are not a dictatorship. And maybe we are too big. Maybe Texas goes down and does its own thing, right?
Hmm. That would be interesting if that happens. I mean, it could easily happen.
Yeah. I mean, I've had a vision of the United States being broken into chunks for a long, long, long time.
Hmm.
And that doesn't mean that's tomorrow. It doesn't mean it's next week. And it doesn't mean it's even because of this, right? I've just seen a future of the US that potentiality is that we are not as big as we are right now.
So what you just said right there, remember that in terms of everything that you come up with.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
You have incredible accuracy. When I feel that energy, that purple blue Amazon that you are,
Mhm.
there's no mistakes with that. I got major chills through me. There's no
Oh,
mistakes, Kim.
thank you.
You are solid.
Thank you. Because I definitely, in my humanness, because I am human, right? In my humanness, I look around at my mistakes
Uh-huh.
and I see them and I feel them deeply. Um, I just do because I feel the imperfection, and it's always been the imperfections, the getting it wrong, that has made me stop being intuitive and ignore it. But then I feel like I've just ignored my entire legs. Like I've just kicked my legs out from underneath me every time I try to ignore my intuition, and I always go back to it.
Oh
Sometimes it's years later, right? But I always go back to it because I can't live a whole, authentic, vulnerable life if I am not embracing my intuition.
yeah, there you go. That is a huge part of you. You
It is.
have to do it. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. It's like saying I don't have any emotions if I don't listen to my intuition. I've tried to
that's
do
right.
that too. I've tried to kick out all emotions too.
Oh my gosh.
That's
You
not wise. That's not wise.
silly woman. No, don't
Silly
do
woman.
that.
Don't do that. Yes. Big mistake.
When you show your emotions, you demonstrate to others how to do it.
Yes.
You demonstrate to others that even if they are fearful, they can do this.
Yes.
And that is a big lesson that all of us as Americans need to see.
Yeah.
We can do this. We have a huge adversary now
Yeah.
and all his minions, and it's going to be a shit show. But we need to keep going.
Right.
And you are showing that they can. So please keep doing it.
Okay.
I want to take your class. When I can afford it, I will.
Oh, the master class will be Wednesday, Wednesday the before
Thanksgiving.
Wednesday before the Thanksgivings. It'll be the 20th, Wednesday the 20th. I'll have a master class.
Well, it's going to be great,
Thank you.
whether I can attend or not this time, but it's
Yes.
going to be great. You've got a lot of meat.
Oh, I
You
do.
have a lot. Yeah.
I just have to figure out what meat I'm going to put into it. And I'm like already planning the course in January. And I'm like, I want to do this, and I want to do this, and I want to do this, and I want to do this. And I'm like, Kim, you only have 24 hours in a day. And 8 of that needs to be sleeping. And they also need to eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And they need breaks. And they need to go to the spa. And they need, right? And so
Yeah. Okay,
it's
I
not
have
all
an
going to
idea.
fit in 2 days.
So, since this is happening so close to Thanksgiving, what if you theme it like a Thanksgiving? You have here's a salad, here's the exercise to start off. Then
Oh
you
no,
got your soup.
that's the master class isn't the what I was just talking about is the event in January.
Okay,
The
gotcha.
master class I have to build. I haven't even thought about it, haven't even looked at it. I don't know what I'm doing for that. But the event that I'm building for January, the 2 day event, I'm already like, you can't throw all this stuff, all of it in there. Like your table is only so big, Kim. You have to realize what is the most important things to have on the table.
There
What are
you
the
go.
most important things to put on that table? And
Mm-hmm.
I think Reiki attunement might be one of the most important things to put on that table.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there it is.
You're in a much different space now.
I really am. Thank you for helping me shift my energy. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. You just needed somebody to give you a mirror.
I did. I needed somebody to be like, Kim, this might be bad, but you know what? I have everything I need to fight.
Yes. You have everything to process it, to work it.
Yeah, and I also get to choose how much of it I let in,
Yes. Yeah.
right? Everybody else can be flipping out because all these things are happening out there, but they can happen out there. They can happen out there. And I
Mm-hmm.
can be an oasis here.
Yeah.
And I can
Right.
offer something totally different here that is in
Yes.
contrast to what's going on out there.
Give them where they want to go.
Mm,
Create the space that they want to be in, and they just don't know how to get there yet.
exactly. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This has been a ball, Kim.
Excellent. All right. I'm going to end us here after I
Okay.
make the note of give them where they want to go, where they want to go. Give them the space they want to be in. And I'm just going to give a little Laural Roaldson to that. I'm going to give you all the credits. I believe in giving everybody all the credit because not all of this comes from me. I get this because I listen and I pay attention and I pull it all in and then I muck it around in there and then I turn it into something.
Yeah, yeah.
But whatever I get from somebody else, they get the credit because this originated from them.
Well, I appreciate that. And I understand that. I do the same thing. It feels so good, doesn't it?
It does to be like, this isn't mine, but I'm going to give it to you as if it's mine. But I'm going to tell you that it came from them because then you can go find them. All right.
Oh,
Thank you so
this
much.
is, thank you. Yeah. Bye-bye.